Now, this text has to do with virtue, not getting lost in the trivial, but being mature. And the greatest sign of maturity, of course, is love. But it has application, much broader application. He said, when I was a child, I used to speak like a child, think like a child, reason like a child. When I became a man, I did away with childish things. So here we see something. Just like when it says in the Bible, God created them man and woman. We have a foundational principle. There are men and there are women. Another text that we could pull from is 1 Corinthians 15. Act like men. That means men act a certain way, women act a certain way. They respond differently to things, and it doesn't make one more right than the other. They're just different. Created that way in the image of God. Here we see something very, very important, is that there's a difference between a child and an adult. Now, a child is a beautiful thing. I'm 61 years old, and I have a daughter who just turned 7. And everyone says to me, "That's a beautiful granddaughter you have." And I say, well, she is my daughter and she is grand, so I suppose that, yes, that's good. It's my granddaughter. It's a beautiful thing for me to walk in the park or even across the parking lot holding my daughter's hand because she's 7 years old. But it's ridiculous, even a bit disgusting, if I'm walking in the same park, walking across the same parking lot with my 21-year-old son who is 6'5". There is a difference. I relate to them differently. Now, you young people need to understand something. Again, I want to iterate that you are not more corrupt or more lost than any generation, but you have been bombarded with lie after lie after lie. It's got to the point where actually, well, let me share something with you that happened to me in the university many, many years ago. This guy was discipling me, and I looked up to him, and we had the same psych class. He had it the hour before me. I had the hour, of course, after him. And the teacher was Antichrist. I mean, literally, he would stand up in front of 500 students and just mock God. I mean, it was unbelievable. Well, one day, as I was going into class, my friend was coming out. He was smiling. I said, "What are you smiling about?" He says, "I love this class. I absolutely love this class." And I said, "Why?" "It helps me know the will of God." And I was a young believer, so I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I listen to everything that professor says. I write it all down. I do the opposite and I have the scriptures." That's the culture that we live in. It's not turned right side up, but upside down. And it's not our job to accept that, to be passive, or to moan, or to circle the wagons. I suppose little children would do that, but we're not little children. You are called to be men and women. And you are to pass through the stages of childhood. You are. And each one of those stages is delightful, but you can't stay there. But your culture is telling you to stay there. It's absolutely astounding when I look at your culture, at how childishness and foolishness and absurdity is exalted. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine one day, an older man, very, very kind, very godly man, saw a group of girls in his church, and they were all talking together as a group of about 10 girls, very godly, very serious about their walk. And he just kind of in a grandfather way, jokingly said, "Well, young ladies, there's a lot of young men here, who love the Lord. Are you praying?" And they said, "No." And he said, "Why?" And with one voice they said, "Well, they read their Bibles, they go to Bible studies, and they're moral. But we would never entrust our lives to these young men. I mean, they hang out together. When they get a little extra money, they buy Nikes or a video game. They're little boys. And so you see, you can be a Bible reader and you can be moral, but you have not taken upon yourself the mantle of manhood. And you are to do that with an urgency. You are to do that as quickly as possible.